aren't, hopefully we're going to see forward growth, right? So, you know, third year growth, third year usage is going to be higher than first year usage. You know, we're putting a lot of effort right now into figuring out marketing strategies. So you get people who have EVs to use them, people who are considering EVs to use them. And so the idea then is you'll be able to say, okay, we have this you know, meaningful number of chargers that are OPEX positive, and so therefore the city is in a position to go out and expand that. Does that make sense?
Like a franchise agreement, like the way we did the city bike model or bus shelters, that would be the next step. But also, just to put another point to Ari's comments, currently people who own EVs either have their own garages, which is probably not too many people on the Upper West Side, or they pay to have their car stored in a garage. So they're paying for their garage spot and they're getting their charging there. So this is a way to make it more available to the public without having to pay for the garage.
So then you'd see increasing usage of EV vehicles and then it would become profitable.
And there has been, EV sales have been slowly but continuously growing on a month-by-month basis.
And I think for $250 an hour, this will be profitable?
If you had sufficient utilization, so there's a 30% utilization on the spot, which is high. At $250 an hour, 30% utilization is OPEX positive.
Yeah, so you'd be making money.
Yes, but we've incurred but at scale. I mean, we've incurred a lot of like upfront costs. So, for example, that unit that you just saw went through design commission approval. You know, presumably all those kind of things would be, you know, you could amortize them over scale, or you would have lower costs. The initial 4-year pilot, we don't anticipate it will not be profitable.
And I'm sorry to monopolize, but unrelated issue, safety. You could take that and dunk it in water and there's no safety issue?
Yeah, so there are two ways we've, yes, electric vehicle chargers, that plug is inherently safe, so that plug design has been around for 10 years, and what it has is a pilot signal, basically a low voltage connection. And there's no power flowing on that cord until that low voltage connection is made. So that's one thing. And then additionally, DOT, you know, has experience with street furniture, and we added some safety mechanisms. So there's an electrical breakaway and a mechanical breakaway in the unit. So you can always stand in a puddle and use an electric vehicle charger, and then in the event that a charger was sort of hit by in a traffic accident, we've designed two aspects to make sure it de-energizes.
So I understand in these areas you're going to be no standing except for charging vehicles.
Correct.
We will be paying $2.50 an hour. I don't know how enforcement will be implied. There's always someone who's going to try to game the system.
Sure.
So if I have a car and I'm going to sit there, oh, I got a notification that my car is fully charged, but I'd like it to sit for another 8 hours. It's going to cost me $20 just to keep that car there. How do you prevent that from happening? Are there increasing charges if someone leaves that car charged? Will DOT be able to, will the NYPD be able to issue tickets?
NYPD is going to specifically be looking if the car is plugged in. If the car is not plugged in, then it can receive a ticket. If the car is plugged in, it cannot receive a ticket. But as the user, you are going to be incurring fees, and that's something that, you know, along with Con Ed, we'll be looking at to make sure that we incentivize people to move. So maybe they won't move if it's $20. Maybe they'll only move if it's $50. You know, I don't know. That's something that we'll have to play around with.
But the idea is we can, you know, you notify them your car is full. If you don't move it within, 30 minutes, we will start putting on an additional $5 an hour or some number to whatever number would move them.
I think if you think about city bike,
we know it's not elastic.
Put on a high number, then put on a low number.
Yeah.
Right.
Super quick question. You mentioned an app. Is the app gonna be a flow app or a city app? And if it's a flow app, where is that data and information gonna go and how is it gonna be used by the city?
So Flow is a Flow app, although you can also use a charge point. There's roaming with charge point, which is the most common charge provider. So you could also use your charge point app for a car. The data, there is sort of anonymized data, so that so we'll be able to get usage data on each station, and the city required getting that.
So we meaning the city
The
will
city,
have access
yeah,
to
the
that
city will.
information, and will that data be sold by Flow at all?
No.
Do
Well,
you have a
sorry, what do you
privacy
mean, like
and-
personally identifiable?
Yeah, any sort of data on usage or anything like that will not be used as part of the business model. Okay. Thanks.
You didn't answer that.
All right.
You didn't
I think
answer that
Rich had a question, I have a question. Rich
Okay,
had a
Rich.
question.
We're just doing questions, not
Yes.
discussion. Have you thought about creating spaces for EVs separate from the charging stations? 'Cause-
Yeah,
And there are
so-
gonna be two main issues. One is being able to charge, but if you charge for a few hours, then you have to go out and look for another spot, which.
Yeah, so basically, there's an entire ecosystem that we're trying to create, okay? So there's fast charging, and then there's the level 2 charging. DOT also has its own lots and garages where we're implementing fast charging, and we've already done some level 2 charging. We're looking to do more. So we're looking to create these charging hubs. In addition to that, we are working with the Mayor's Office of Sustainability to identify other city sites and other public-private partnerships, as another tier to encourage installation of various charging facilities. So the idea is to create all kinds of levels of charging throughout the city so people feel like they can be comfortable buying an electric car and they won't get stuck, and there'll be lots of different places for them to charge.
And
I think my question might not have been clear. So charging is a short-term thing. People who have EVs are still gonna have the issue, unless they're parking in private lots, of having to park their car. If we wanna motivate people to switch from gas-powered vehicles to electric vehicles, it could make sense to designate certain parts of current street parking as EV only.
We're not doing that right now.
Okay, and then a second question is there a way that the app can do the enforcement, so that we're not relying on the police department to do it?
I mean, again, it's gonna be a fee-based incentive situation. So we'll be looking to see, like the app can't give you a New York City parking violation, but if you think $100 or whatever the pricing model is worth your parking spot, then,
Cause once
Yeah.
they've unplugged, the app wouldn't know they're there.
I mean, we'll have people
So-
plugging this into to gas cars just to be able to park for
You
$2.50.
can.
Plug it
You
into the
can.
gas car.
We'll put it through the window. I mean,
Well, there will be people
It-
trying these.
Yeah, I mean,
But we are training, what to look for, and hopefully it'll be.
yeah. I mean, the issue here isn't the charging. The charging's great. It's that people are going to want these spots, and we'll try to
For that,
gain
and
the
then
spots.
we'll open it to the community.
For-
And then Mark.
We got a whole bunch of phone calls from one building that
Yeah.
was concerned about the charging. I'm just curious how you did your outreach. I know there was an article in the West Side Rag.
we did an email notification to impacted community boards and electeds. We did that in April, identifying the pilot neighborhoods, and then we did it again in July, identifying all the locations for feasibility.
How did you get that?
I'm sorry.
Did you get the email?
Yeah.
Yeah, I never saw anything.
Well, it would have come to me
Colleen?
and Howard, but we didn't see it.
Colleen, they're saying they didn't get the email
Well, no, it probably came to
notification.
the office.
If we went to the office, it goes to Penny.
So, my limited understanding of this world is that, electric vehicles are only as green as the power source that powers them. So if this were in certain parts of Ohio, we'd be fueling our cars with coal. So I guess my question is there a and I'm looking at the guy,
Did he say
my understanding is
corn?
on Ed.
Yeah.
Because some of us pay a little more to
Ohio
get
pays
our,
corn.
theoretically get our power from windmills instead of some other power source. Will these things be fueled by something, a power source that's green or greener than, please God, coal?
So Nate can tell you about the base delta between, electric car on our grid, but I will also say that yes, we are very seriously investigating. We are trying to buy those renewable energy credits that you buy for your house, also for these charging stations.
And just as a base matter, so gas vehicles convert about 20% of their energy in motion. Electric vehicles convert about 60% of their energy in motion. So inherently they do emit fewer greenhouse gas emissions, even if you're on a coal grid. But obviously renewables are way better than coal or gas or oil. So.
And it's also a question of the emissions for people living in the area.
Well,
You know what I mean?
But
that's
they
true,
also,
but
according to-
I would be worried about a policy statement
Yeah, I
that
mean,
moves the particulates to somebody
someone else.
else's
Yes.
neighborhood.
It's
No,
true,
no,
no,
for sure.
according to what we
For
heard
sure.
on last week,
Yeah.
there's, from the tires and from the rotor, there still is a lot of gas and particulate, so it doesn't, it reduces it, but it doesn't eliminate it at all.
Understood. Thanks.
Am I, just to add to what Mark was just saying, am I to understand that you do not have a relationship with a green source of power that's running through the Con Ed lines? My understanding is Con Ed is getting out of the energy production business. They're in the distribution business only. So you do not have a contract yet with
So-
Green Source Energy?
An electric vehicle on New York City's grid is 75% cleaner than an average 22 mpg conventional car. So it's still even cleaner than a hybrid. But we are seeking to purchase renewable energy credits. I can't tell you it's done today, but I can tell you I'm having a meeting about it on Friday.
Great. Thank you.
People in the audience.
Okay, let's just go around the room.
I just wanna, just for further clarification, is there a fee cycle already planned to have this, so cars aren't overcharging and just utilizing the space, or is that a theoretical, as we put this into motion, figure out a fee structure? I just wanna be able to briefly tell us.
Yeah, I mean, Ari, do you wanna talk about what you've seen, like in Montreal and?
So Montreal, they keep the fee straight through. Theirs is lower. They started lower, and I think that was a mistake because it's not a sustainable business. But what they do is, our intent is to continue the $2.50 per hour fee just continuously, even if you stop charging. But I think everybody here is raising the issue. Well, you might end up having people who are just sitting there, and in that case, what's nice about this kind of system is that you get great information. So if you see a charger that somebody is just sitting on and not charging on it, you obviously have the ability in consultation with DOT, in collaboration with DOT, to change that pricing. So our original plan, based on Montreal, where they just continue their pricing, their hourly pricing all the way through, even whether you're charging or not, is to do that because it's been successful. People get off of the station within about a half an hour of when their battery is full. But if it doesn't work in New York, obviously we have the flexibility to change.
Two questions. Number one, since this is a pilot program, in any business, when one has a pilot program going, they have certain marks that they use to see whether or not this is meeting those marks. Do you have a pilot program? Are you gonna submit that to the community board so that we can check and see if you're making your sets?
So we have we report, we're gonna produce quarterly reports on the project. Certainly happy to share that with you or whomever.
But what's the in other words,
Yeah.
what's the point that you know that the project hasn't succeeded?
Yeah. So I'm only gonna speak for Con Edison's
Right.
goals, but it's basically to see if they're acceptable to the community, if they reach a base level of utilization, right? So we wanna see the stations on a pathway to 30% utilization. And then finally, if they've increased electric vehicle adoption, or receptivity to electric vehicles. And we're doing a few things to try to measure.
But you're also saying that those are your goals.
Yeah.
So those goals have to be able to be written down to see that you meet those goals or not meet those goals. And if you're not meeting those goals, what are you gonna do either to meet those goals, or at what point in time after 4 years are you gonna say, this isn't working, we need something else, and at least have a reason why we're doing that. The second question I have is that when you say that it takes 3 hours to charge a vehicle, and that vehicle will then get 90 miles, let's say, if you, in the wintertime, if you turn on your heater, if you turn on your steering wheel heater, if you turn on the radio, if you turn on the seat warmers, from that 90 miles, you've got 55.
Right.
Okay? Secondly, you're restricting people with electric cars strictly to the city. Because if you, let's say, want to go to Massachusetts for a weekend, you're not gonna get there on an electric car. You're not gonna make it at all.
Why is that?
Well,
Well, where are you gonna charge?
You're gonna charge up the highway.
Oh, are there charging stations
There's
up the
charging
highway?
stations.
You're not gonna sit there for 8 hours at a rest stop and wait till it charges.
Right, you're gonna sit at a rest stop for 8 hours, maybe?
So their
So
Chevy
this is
Bolt,
this
the
is
Chevy Bolt
really
now has 236
relevant
miles
to-
of range. Charge
What's
it-
that? Say again?
The Chevy Bolt has 230 miles of range, and you can charge it in about 20 to 30 minutes at a fast charging station.
At a fast charge, yes.
Yeah.
We need
So-
to, we have.
This
a
isn't
law.
relevant, yeah.
Just
You're
let
not
me
doing
ask
it.
what
It's
you're
not-
doing about
No.
what are you gonna do about presenting us with a plan that we can judge your success or failure on? Are you gonna present that to us?
Well, so those quarterly reports, we have those 3 milestones that, you know, or those 3 goals that I just described, and so each quarter, every 3 months, we're reporting on, you know, whether or not we are on track.
Can you put that in writing and send it to the board, please?
It's available on the state website. I mean, I will do my best, but
Okay.
it'll be available.
Next.
Just a couple of really quick points. It's a little disingenuous for you guys to say that you're only gonna get $2.50 out of this, because actually when I noticed this hearing was coming up, I took a look at my Con Ed bill. You are actually billing for this and other projects, everyone in this room and everyone that is a Con Ed customer, $3.80. It's a brand new separate charge on our bills, and it specifically says it's for EV charging stations, et cetera. It's actually on the page 4 of my bill. Couple other quick questions for you. In reference to these charging stations, will they be, say, in the middle of the block, at the side of the block, or wherever? Because when they put in these idiotic city bike stations, nobody went and said, oh, you're putting this right in front of the entrance to, for example, a senior citizen home, or a building that needs to be taken into account. Also the distance from fire hydrants, et cetera, things like that. More importantly, my question is, have you guys had any consultations by any chance, because I haven't heard anything here about it, with the Landmarks Commission of the City of New York? And the reason I mention that is because city law actually, under the Landmarks Commission, and it's subsection 25-3118 says, and I'll quote, any placement and or construction, reconstruction or alteration or demolition of any improvement or proposed improvement on any city street must first be approved by Landmarks Commission, et cetera. It goes on, et cetera. That there's a 3-month period where you have to submit architectural plans and all kinds of other stuff, and I have yet to hear that from anyone here, and I'd just be curious
So the sidewalks are city right of way, and we are submitting, we have already submitted to the Public Design Commission and received preliminary approval of the chargers, and we're going, we're going back to the Public Design Commission within the next few months for final approval once we have all the drawings and graphics. And then in terms of the siting question, we're again looking at a variety of typologies, and we're also taking into account, we have siting guidelines that the PDC has already approved. So we have to be within certain distances of different street furniture, tree pits, trees, that kind of thing. And then about the Con Ed bill, that I'm gonna have to leave to Ari.
I think that's a state, I think what you're referring to, I don't have your bill in front of me.
Yeah.
But I think that's actually a fee assessed by the state, for doing some of the things that were described earlier, like those fast charge stations.
It is a state fee, but it says clearly that it goes directly to you. And the other quick question, just really quickly, these, I mean, if I had an electric vehicle, I would park it there and pay the extra $250 or even $20 because it would be cheaper than a garage, first of all. What about commercial vehicles? Because, for example, Spectrum's fleet, what's the UPS and a couple other people all have electrical vehicles. What's to stop them if they're making deliveries to just plug in their vehicles?
Nothing is to stop an electric vehicle, any electric vehicle, from using the charger.
They'll be, the UPS will get the same rate. They would get
Yeah.
the same rate.
If they can fit in the spot.
Right, they'd have
Assuming there's
to,
not another car there
they'd
or
have to
something.
fit there. I mean, those companies
Right.
are also
Yeah.
working on, chargers for their own
Right.
fleets, you know,
Let's
so.
give it- we really have to wrap this up quickly. Yep.
It feels like we're still incentivizing private car ownership, and, you know, I think it's probably greener to take a bus, honestly. And so, like, once we've stuck these poles in the sidewalk, is it gonna be harder to put a bus lane, or to put bike parking, or, I mean, like, why are
It's a
we
good-
actually,
yeah.
this seems silly to.
It's a good question, and, you know, I shouldn't say obviously, but the city definitely prefers you to walk, bike, ride a bus, take public transportation. But if you have to use a vehicle, we want to encourage electric. We have run through all of our locations with our internal units to make sure that we're not conflicting with any upcoming bike lanes or bus lanes or things like that. So, you know, we've really tried to consider as much as we could possibly think of. Also upcoming DDC projects, whether they involve DEP, school construction authority, you know, I mean, we've done our best, but obviously there could be
So we've done a
one
lot
or
of work
two.
in the city to basically figure out how we get our emissions down to where we want them to be. And undoubtedly, buses and biking and walking is way more effective than electric vehicles. However, there will still be vehicles on the streets, and we want them to be as clean as possible. We would love to put subways in that group of things.
Any more questions? Because we need to wrap it up quickly. Yep.
Right, so I'm here at the site. So we received an email from our management agent that one of the sites is, Amsterdam, 66 and 67. Okay, I'm on 66. Every day, there are 2 to 4 buses leaving out emissions in front of that building, sitting, every day. Now, they're coming across in a bus, right across 66th Street, from east to west. There's tremendous traffic making a turn onto Amsterdam. But how could anybody have selected that block? I think this is a great project, and I would back you 100%. How could you pick that particular spot?
I don't think that's our priority.
I don't think it's one of the.
I don't think that's one of our priority locations.
Well, PS 191 Julia LaGuardia is on the West End Avenue, so that's not on.
No, this, on this list.
No, they're looking, look at the screen.
Yeah, I know.
That was an old list, I
We've
think.
since
They're
narrowed.
not
was an
looking at
old
this
list.
list, they're looking at the screen.
Yeah,
The
we've
top three,
since
right?
narrowed down our list.
Oh.
So these are our top 3 locations.
So does that mean that particular site was rejected?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what it
Oh,
means.
great, okay.
I mean, some of the information that may have come out of our publication may not have been. We're happy with it.
Let's have a quick discussion at the committee. Any further comments at the committee level, thoughts?
And we
ideas?
will post this presentation on our website probably tomorrow.
And we can put it up on our.
And you're welcome to put it out wherever you like.
Rich?
I think overall it's better to have electric vehicles than gas-powered vehicles, so I think it's a great idea and we should support it. I don't know your name, but it's a good point about, you know, it's still encouraging private vehicle ownership and could get in the way of bus lanes or bike lanes. For that reason, I think we should prefer to have these on side streets than on avenues, because we're more likely to have protected bike lanes on Riverside Drive or on West End Avenue. And so I would say that we should, you know, put them around the corner when possible.
I just want to clarify to that point that for the West End Avenue one, the east side curb, that's why I specified that. Because it does take into account, I believe, maybe it's a future.
But it's
or
on West
plan.
End, right?
It's still on
Yeah.
West End Avenue.
Yeah,
And
but this takes into account the bike lane.
well, there is no bike lane on West End
yet,
Avenue.
but-
If there
but
were, we
there's-
might want it on both sides.
Well, I'm saying because of our bike planning unit's comments, this is what they recommended, so that it would not interfere with a future.
And the one on 86 is
I'll make a comment.
after the
No, I
bus.
wanna make a comment. Everyone's talking about encouraging electric vehicles over gas vehicles. I think the city should be encouraging mass transit, buses, trains,
Absolutely.
putting in express bus lanes. That should be what it's encouraging, not saying, well, we're gonna encourage something bad as opposed to very bad. I think the city should use all of its resources, all of its efforts to promote, really, environmentally friendly types of transit.
So why don't you put that in the resolution?
I mean-
So I am against this. Yes, theoretically, it might encourage someone to go from a gas car to a questionably environmentally friendly electric car, but I think all of our efforts should be devoted to encouraging environmental modes of transportation, like the subway.
I think that that's unreasonable. Like, you're gonna have cars in the city, always. I mean, people, think of all the comments we got during the Central Park West comment about people who need their cars because they have to be able to drive to the suburbs to visit their ailing parents, or because, you know, wherever their job is doesn't have mass transit and they have to be able to drive. Like, I just think that a time when we can have no cars in the city is either so far in the future as to not be relevant or just not reasonable.
Okay,
So
let
we
me
should
just say,
encourage a better alternative.
Encouraging mass transit is not saying ending cars. I own
But
a
if
car.
we're, so then
Wait,
if
I'm
we're
gonna
gonna
make a point.
acknowledge
I
that
own
there's
a
gonna
car
be
and-
cars, why wouldn't we want them to be electric?
And I am not giving up the car. The point is, you don't want to make it easier or
Can't afford
to
electric
use city
vehicles right now.
resources.
People can't afford electric
to
vehicles?
People
encourage-
cannot afford electric
Well,
vehicles.
some people
Look at the
obviously
map. I
can.
mean, look at the map of who this is catering to. I think that's one of the concerns we have.
Okay.
Well,
Well,
electric
I just wanna-
vehicles are, getting more affordable, and there
Yeah.
is now one in every price point, and that's a growing market in terms of the used electric cars.
Yeah.
They're
But
gonna
if
be
that were the
much-
case, we'd be doing this pilot in other parts
So-
of the city, and we're not.
I just want to respond to Howard.
You're doing it all.
First of all, it's not
Yeah.
questionable about whether they're more environmental than gas vehicles. At least what was it Ari said?
I didn't
Yeah.
say that.
They're doing
You
it
said
all.
You said
questionable, you did.
questionably, you said questionably greener.
Those are the-
Uh,
Look at the
friendliness,
map,
that's-
that's all the places they're doing.
Yeah,
So-
but I think if you map that against like net
Income.
net
So
income in
my
the city,
second
it's
point is
pretty
we
high.
shouldn't let the
Yeah.
perfect be the enemy of the good. And if we can make an improvement, we're not replacing, you know, we're taking spots away from gas cars to give them to electric cars.
Also, it's at no
and giving
cost to the
ability-
city.
Yeah, on
So-
balance, this is a positive. Is it as positive as we'd like?
So-
But it's
so
not, they're not mutually
I
exclusive.
make a resolution
What's
to
your resolution?
support this project, given, you know, appropriate community feedback on the sites.